When you discovered the law of attraction, you started to believe anything was possible. Life got better, much better. Now you want more, but it's not working. That's where the Manifest It Now show comes in. If you've been waiting for someone who can teach you the practical application to manifest quicker and easier while having more, turn the volume up, because the dynamic duo, Cassie Parks and Ginny Gain, are ready to teach you how to live the law of attraction like they do. It's time to laugh and learn.
Hello to all our wonderful listeners. Welcome to this episode of Manifest It Now. I'm here with Cassie Parks.
And I'm here with Ginny Gain.
Cass and I have an episode for you guys today. We're going to talk about how to enjoy the ride even more than you do.
Right.
Because we know as listeners, you guys are already rocking it and getting more and more joy along the way. And we have just had an amazing, so much high energy conversation for the past hour and a half. And we want to share all of that goodness with you because there's stuff happening in our lives now that is exactly how the process unfolds, and being aware of it for you now on wherever you on your path is going to be so helpful.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And can I share this part? Like, we're working on you guys getting to hear those conversations. It's not that we I don't know. We actually have thought of recording them before. But now we're at a place where we want to record this and just let you guys hear us talk in a little different way. It's probably, there's going to be an investment and it's probably going to be business specific. And then we've talked a little bit about the relationship specific, but just the opportunity to hear, because there's so much goodness in what you and I share and the evolution, right? Mm-hmm. It's connecting the dots and getting to be there along the journey that, I don't know, just makes it really cool.
What Cassie doesn't know is that sometimes I have secretly recorded her and I have those files. I'll have to go and dig back through those.
That's awesome. I love it. I also love it because I was like, Jenny and I didn't talk about saying this today, but I'm going to say it. And then you're like, yeah. And I have secret files of you. It's awesome.
What are you excited about, Cass?
Oh my God. My Freedomversary, this is a really cool time. So actually I want to highlight this too. We haven't looked up the exact date, but we've been doing this show for about 4 years, which is awesome. 4 years?
And we're almost at,
did we decide?
I don't know, we're almost at 200 episodes. We're going to celebrate that.
So about 4 years. Yeah, we're going to celebrate that. Oh my gosh, with you guys in a contest and all that, which is really fun. And my Freedomversary is coming up. And what I love about where I am in life and business and letting things unfold is that the amazing offer that I have for you guys to celebrate that, started back in May, right? Mm-hmm. It was a whisper and it was go do this. And because now things are bigger, it used to be just I remember one of the first ones, it was you could prepay for Manifest 10K, right? Mm-hmm. You could either pay me 10% after, or it was pay 97 now. And it was awesome. And it happened in a couple of days. It really was just oh, this would be cool. Let me make this offer. And it was over in a couple of days, but I love where I am right now, watching all of these pieces come together and really being in a space where inspiration and the actions that you take that follow are more spaced out. And you can see how they tie to different things. I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but for me, that's very juicy and very fun right now.
Yeah, it's a lot easier to understand when you're in it because you're the only one that, you're the one that knows all the pieces. And so, but sharing the excitement about it and when people have those experiences, that's when you're oh, that's what Cassie was talking about, that part.
Yeah. 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 And I think if I could bring it down to one thing for our listeners are yeah, you're right. You did a great job, Jen. It would also be what we're going to talk about today, right? Experience the moments that go with it, right? Yes. And really even if something won't make sense to anyone else, love on that and enjoy that and really just have it for just you. That's okay.
Mm-hmm. That just made me think of one of my clients I was talking to said, well, sometimes I'll say something and people will think I'm crazy for doing it that way. I'm like, perfect. That's
Right?
what we want. We want people to
Yes.
think we're weirdos because like we are going against the way the most of the world lives their life. And I'm like, that is something to celebrate because most of the world is not happy. And so don't do what they do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. What are you excited about?
Well, I'm really excited about the hurricane that's coming, possibly. I know that's a funny thing to be excited about, but you guys know I'm always talking about the clouds and the lightning and how I love storms, and this is just a big storm. And obviously I'm, going to be hoping everyone's safe and setting that intention and we'll be safe inside, but it just feels like fun. It feels like a change. And, Lisa's been super adorable going around and preparing and getting plywood and getting snacks and telling me about what's going to happen and what to expect and flying winds. And we got to go to the beach and it's closed, but we got to be rebels and we got to go in a safe way. And I'm just excited. It's like, I just love new experiences. So it's going to be fun.
Yay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm also excited that it's less than a month until our Manifest It Now live event.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you guys are joining us, make sure to register. Go to manifestitnowlive.com. If you've been there before, you got to clear your cache or your whatever, so that you get to the updated page of this year's event. You get to hang out with us, to ask questions. You have the opportunity to go to a VIP dinner, which is more time with us, more one-on-one, more of that experience of being in the energy.
Yeah, it's going to be so awesome. And you leave a changed person just spending time in that vibe.
Yes. Hugely changed. Yeah.
All right, so where do you want to start with our topic today?
Do you want to start talking about the Pink song?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
So, you guys know I love Pink, though that's not really a part of this. But Lisa and I were on a drive, and we were listening to the What About Us song. And I was like, oh, yeah, it's cool how it means this. And I said I love how political she is in some of her songs. And Lisa was like, oh, I thought it meant about relationships. And we listened to it again, and then it brought on going to look up what the song means. And then I found the person who co-wrote the song, McDade, he had some brilliant comments, and I just wanted to read it because it's such a good example of how manifesting works. So, did you have any idea, this is the question, did you have any idea that What About Us would be the first song off Pink's new album when you guys were working on it? And he says, I have a thing that every songwriting session I go into is such a sacred space, and I don't ever think about what a song is for. Okay, I want you guys to think about how this applies to manifesting, okay? It's really just about allowing it to happen and be whatever it decides to be. It tells you or tells the people that are there what it should be. Now, if you go in with a kind of prescriptive attitude of, this is going to be or this should be a single, then I think you probably limit its potential. So let's take a second and talk about this, because there's so much goodness in that, in everything Cass and I talk about, like going in, so should be a single. And you can think about like when you have been thinking about what's happening in your life, it should be this way. Every time you say that, you limit the possibility of what could happen.
And I want to highlight that. You limit that possibility when what you think you're doing, because is opening the possibility, right? Mm-hmm. And I had this conversation with one of my amazing actor clients this week in one of our coaching sessions, and I can't wait till she hears this episode, because it's just, I love when I get to reinforce exactly what we've talked about in the Enchanted Circle. And it's this, right? It's going into the opportunity, it's going into the possibility to just be there and to be fully you and to express fully you versus having any sort of outcome.
Yeah. And another way I like to say that is like the potential of that experience. So the potential of your desire, whether it's the relationship, whether it's the career success, and let's make it something smaller, whether it's an acting gig, the potential of that experience, it exists vibrationally. And when you try to define what it should be with your mental capacity, that's you limiting it. So when we get out of the way and we just say, let this experience be whatever it's meant to be for me, then you give it space. That's what this guy's talking about. He just gives it space. He goes in and creates a sacred space, and the song, which already exists vibrationally, comes out. It comes out through them. But if they're trying to make it something, it doesn't have that same potential. It doesn't have that same experience. So that's amazing. I just love this example of it.
Me too. And he didn't explain it this way, but from my perspective, the reason it limits the potential is that you can't yet see you can't see all the possibilities, right? Yeah. So when you put what you think the possibility is on it, it really does limit it. And so read the next part of the interview.
Okay, wait, I just want to highlight that.
Okay.
You, from where you are at, so your reality is a reflection of where you're at. And so you can only think so far because you're in this space. And that's why you can only dream so far. You can, only believe so far because from that vibration, that's what you have access to. So when you take your beliefs or ideas or thoughts off of it, that's really creating space for what you don't know you want, basically. The details of the experience that you don't know, and then they can come to fruition.
Mm-hmm. You don't know, or you're not
not ready for,
or you're not at the capacity yet to see your worth.
Yes.
Right? Like you, yeah. Okay.
So one of the other questions was, do you have any other songs on the album? Oh, I love this part.
Me too.
Okay. He says, this is the only one from the sessions that made it onto the album. But we wrote some other songs a few days prior to that, which I thought were really, really great. And certainly the process was really important. Ding, ding, ding. I'm going to keep going. Yeah. Often that is the case, where no song that you write is a mistake and no song that you write isn't important because it alters everything you do after it. Oh, it's so good. So for me, the fact that the other songs aren't on the record, they were still important to have written because we wouldn't have gotten to What About Us if we hadn't written the ones before it. It's so amazing.
So amazing. All right, so let's take this and what does that mean in the manifesting? This is his manifesting process. But what does that mean? These songs are important. What does that mean to you, Jen?
So for me, the way he's approaching this process is every part, every manifestation, every song, every hour that they spent creating this is important. He's not discounting it. He's not saying it should be one way. He's not saying it was wrong because they didn't get on the album. So all of that is really honoring the process. It's really honoring everything that comes out of that, every experience. And that's very allowing. That's very vibrationally open and in alignment, right? And so it's like every piece of the puzzle is important. It wasn't, so in manifesting world, that thing didn't happen that was wrong that led you to what was right. That thing was right, and then the next thing was right as well.
Oh my gosh, hold on. Yes. Because we get this a lot. We've even talked about we had a joking conversation about what, the question of what did I do wrong today? It was all right in the step towards this bigger thing.
Mm-hmm. And I think the more and more awareness you have, so you start living this way and you start paying attention. The longer you're paying attention to what's happening in your life, the easier it is to start making these connections and seeing, oh yeah, I thought that was wrong at the time, but then 4 months later, I see why it was right. And then sometimes this just takes time so that then a year later when something happens and you're like, oh, it's easier to step into, oh, this is right for some reason too. And we don't go because we've had enough experiences of that thing I thought was wrong turned into something right. then eventually we get to in the present moment when the thing we think is wrong, we're like, oh, wait, this is actually right. Mm-hmm. And we stop judging it as wrong.
Yeah. And so when I highlight what you said, the longer you're in it, right? So whenever you find yourself like jumping to any of these thoughts of like, oh, this isn't right, or it's not fast enough, whatever it is, like step back, and I'm in it for the long game. Like, I'm in it to learn the process. I'm in it to see. I'm in it to become aware. Like, remind yourself, like, probably wherever you've been in it is really short. Like, even if you've studied this stuff for 20 years, until you've been living it, which is way different than studying it or knowing all the things or knowing, you know, everything everybody ever says about it. It's way different. Like, living it, how long have you been living it? Like, look at that and see if you've given yourself the space to see those connections, or if you can get excited about the day when you see why this thing that you think is maybe wrong is right.
Yeah. I get that all the time. That's actually the biggest thing I get, probably with you too, Cass, is people who say, I've been reading, I've been learning, I know this stuff. And then 2 weeks in, they're like, oh my gosh, I'm living it now. I just had one of the women say again, like on our call this week, just, I'm so grateful to be here in this group and how different it is actually applying it, actually living it. And it's so amazing. And that's what Cassie's talking about, is not judging yourself or saying like, I've been doing this for so long. Give yourself be easier on yourself and be like, maybe I'm just really learning. I'm taking it to a new level now. So it's not as long. Yeah.
That's a whole other show, really, is like the learning it versus the living it. But yeah, go easy on yourself and shift it to be like, to understand, like, it's okay if you've been, somebody really must be listening that has been doing this for 20 years, because it keeps coming up.
20 keeps coming up.
Yeah, like, it, you know, just like studying it for 20 years is different than learning it, and be open to like, that's cool. It's cool to start living it now because you still have all that knowledge. Just like, be easy on yourself and be excited about what's next and living it to the next level, and just be excited. Like, anytime you want to be hard on yourself, just be excited.
I love using this example when we talk about this, and I won't go too much into it, but it's like you were reading books about what a rose looks like, what a rose smells like, how long the leaves are, like the prickly stems, what it's going to feel like a prick. And you've been doing that and reading and looking at pictures, and you've been looking at all these different kinds. And then you go out and you see a rose and you touch it and you hold it and you smell it. And now you're like, oh, that's what it's like. We don't know the actual feeling until we're experiencing it. And so to make this applicable to manifesting, so Cassie and I are talking about this concept of not defining things as right, and enjoying the experience, which is going to make your path and your journey more enjoyable, until you actually have an experience come into your life and you choose to look at it as, hey, maybe this is a part of something bigger and greater, and feel that's you living it. But you have to make that choice. Like, nobody can do that for you. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So that's really important. I love how we talked about the experience and loving the possibilities that come from that experience. I have another part of this. I want to talk about the trust that goes into this.
Yes. Can I share? I want to share one experience first. So it came up. So I don't know if you guys remember last year around this time, or a little bit more than that, I was really excited about buying an RV and getting some sort of thing to travel around the States and around Canada, and like a mobile home, something movable. Anyway, so I did the work of like, what does it feel like? What are all the details? I did maybe 2 or 3 lists about that, and I really could feel that, and I wanted that, and then let it go. And then it didn't manifest at that time. Anyways, so it's recently come up again with Lisa and I of like, it's going to be part of our future at some point. And she was like, oh, I was looking at trailers. What about a little tow behind trailer? Because we can use her car. And it's kind of seems a lot easier right now. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's great. Sounds super fun. Let's start, look at stuff. And she was looking at one and she showed me one. And then I'm like, oh, what about this one? This was just the other morning. And I looked at the pictures. I'm like, oh my gosh, it has that. It has that thing. It has that thing. It has this I wanted. It has electric fireplace. I'm like, all of these details that I wanted. And as I'm doing this, I'm like, this experience now is connected to the year ago when I defined these things. I can tell by the feeling. It feels like this, and it come in so unexpectedly and easy. So that was cool to have that experience. And then so I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Let's talk to the lady, whatever. So we went through a few communications, and it turned out that it wasn't, it was too heavy for what the car could tow. So we're like, okay, we're not going to do that. And my response to Lisa was like, oh, well, that was fun. I can't wait to see what comes next, right? Because I so get and understand that it was the feeling of having that little experience, like a couple hours of excitement, thinking about possibility. That's the important part. And I knew that it was connected to last year or whatever, and that there's an unfolding to this. And so there's no experience. There wasn't even a second of, oh, this didn't work out for us again. Oh, this wasn't the right one. Oh, nothing. Because this will lead perfectly into I totally trust that what I want is coming and that experience is coming. And so counting and giving value and acknowledging the experiences along the way that lead to and it's not even going to be the ultimate thing. Once we have that experience, there's going to be something else. So that's what makes the ride so fun. So much fun.
Yes. I love it.
So how does that, talk more about how that leads into the trust part.
So I'm going to go back to the songwriter example, right? Mm-hmm. So in order to fully be like, to know that like he has to have a trust somewhere that he gets paid to be a songwriter. Probably he knows he's going to write hits, right? Mm-hmm. And so he's clear about the beingness. He is a hit songwriter, right? Yes. At some point, whether he consciously did all the LOA work or he's just somebody who naturally has been this and decided this, because there's people who naturally really live this way. Mm-hmm. That's what he is, and that's what he trusts in. Like I'm an amazing songwriter. Like my songs, I'm guessing, like I don't know him very well, but I don't know him at all. Like his, he probably has some intentions. If I were to guess, like my songs change people, my songs help people grow. I get paid a lot of money to write amazing songs that change the world. Mm-hmm. Right. And so when he owns that beingness and he trusts that's going to happen, that's part of what allows you to go into songwriting session and really let go. Mm-hmm. So if this is your life, of the details, right? If you're in it for the long term and you know who you want to be and who you're becoming, you can go into those moments and you can create freely because you're not at all attached to the how.
Yeah.
Right. The other thing that he's saying there is really like, again, I don't know if he's LOA, if he's conscious or not of LOA, but like, I'm not attached to the how. I go in and I be the person and I write the songs and I leave knowing and being the person who writes amazing songs. And his amazing songs are not defined by, and his beingness is not defined by the outcome after each song.
By the result. Yeah. Perfect.
By the result. Thank you. Yeah. Yes. Right? He goes in and he writes songs and he trusts this is who he is, but he's never once writing a song having to make it be true that he's an amazing songwriter and gets paid really well.
Right. Having to prove himself or see the physical evidence, manifestation, outcome, whatever, that will support what he wants to believe. He goes in with that knowing. And when you take that energy, the beingness, into that experience and that creative environment, you're going to get a matching outcome. And so,
Right.
but you don't get to define what that outcome looks like. And so think about if he went in trying to make it something, or like, I have to make with this idea of what should be, or what he wanted. And with any fear or doubt of like, what if it doesn't happen, or, anything like that, that's when you try to control the details. That's when you try to be like, well, are people going to like that word? It doesn't come, it doesn't come from the outside. It's all coming from inside. It's all coming from their inspiration, their co-creation, letting ideas flow and being in that place of alignment, to get that outcome. Yeah.
Yeah. And, and then you try to micromanage all that, and all the creativity and all of the possibility is lost, because every time you micromanage something about that process, you're closing doors.
Oh yeah. Micromanaging is like control.
Yeah. Total. It's all
total resistance. Yeah.
It's all resisting. It's all trying to make it happen. Mm-hmm. And the way I literally visualize it is like, there's all of these possibility doors. Yeah. And you think that you're trying, because what happens is you try and just fit through one door instead of understanding that you can be in all these possibility doors at once, right? Like, there's all these people who needed this song, all these people who are going to be impacted by it. And so all those doors, when he goes into the songwriting session, are wide open. And if he was to try to micromanage it, like sometimes people do in manifesting, you start shutting all those doors. Mm-hmm. And you really need all... Go ahead.
No, you keep going.
I was just going to say, and you really need them all open to create the actual experience that you want. Mm-hmm. But we often think it's just one door. It has to go through and it has to look like this.
Yeah. And often because that's where our belief lies. Well, I only think it can come through this way, so I shut all the other doors. Or sometimes we don't even know there's other doors.
Right? We're not aware of like but you create, oh man, we have to wrap up in a second, but you create those doors when you define who you want to be and you start stepping into that beingness.
Yeah.
Like all of these doors swing open, but we think it's the other way around. We think we define the beingness and then we have to go open all these doors, and we have to figure out how to get through the doors. No, when you decide the beingness of who you want to be and you open that, everything swings open to allow that, but you have to allow it instead of force it.
Yeah. And creative energy, open, beautiful, flowing, aligned creative energy is not the same energy as it should be this way, or I got to control this, or it has to happen. They're different vibrations. So you cannot be in both at the same time. Mm-hmm.
Oh man, this is so good.
So awesome. All right, well, we are out of time. I hope everybody has an amazing week, and get over to that manifestitnowlive.com, because we can't wait to see you at our event.
That's right. Have a fabulous rest of your week.
Bye, guys.
Go be awesome. Thank you for joining us on the Manifest It Now show, where you learn how to leverage the law of attraction to manifest your dreams. Now that you're inspired, share the love and review us on iTunes. While you're there, remember to subscribe.